You?
We're in good shape, Mr. Chair. How are you?
Seat's no longer broken in. Gotta break this thing in again.
Yeah. It's good to be in person.
Yeah, very good.
You ready? All right. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back. It's a pleasure to be here in person. There are more people in the audience than I expected to see. Maybe you're as happy to see us as we are to see you. So welcome to the meeting today. As you know, this is our first live meeting in quite some time, and it's certainly my preference to do business this way, where I can see everybody and you can all see me. So let's have a nice meeting today. Roll call. There were four of us here: Jan Conacy, Randy Mason, Walt Cassell, and myself. Barry Brandt will not be coming, so that means we do have a quorum. We have one more than the required quorum, so we're in a position to go forward. Madam Clerk, correspondence. I see that we have some attachments from Mr. Sam Cooper. Is that right?
Yes, but there's not been any general correspondence.
Okay. The agenda lists the minutes of the February 28th meeting, but I believe they were not prepared yet. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we'll skip over those. Any old business, Madam Clerk?
None.
Any new business? Well, that would be our case for today. And that case involves the Belmore Hotel property. And that case is a variance request to allow an additional 588 square feet of poolside hardscaping or concrete at the Belmore Inn, which would extend into the required setback and would exceed the 50% natural area requirement of the code. Everyone who chooses to speak today will be required to give testimony under oath. I'm going to ask our attorney, Mr. Townsend, to administer the oaths. We don't have a court reporter present today, so if a transcript of this hearing is ever required, the court reporter will have to work from the tape recording of the meeting, so please keep your voices up and no cross conversation during the meeting. So for the city, I see Mr. Janis is here. Now, who's here on behalf of the applicant?
Benjamin Gray, General Manager, and Wayne Walker, Chief Engineer of the property.
Would you gentlemen mind coming up to the table and joining us here then?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to ask Mr. Janis to give his presentation. Then we'll allow the applicant to give the applicant's presentation. Then there'll be some questioning. Anybody in the audience who wants to speak about this variance, we will allow you to do so. You're going to get a chance to do that. Okay, Mr. Janis, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And it's great to see everybody. Welcome back. Before you today is 0222-01. It is a Board of Adjustment application for relief in the following sections of the code: 270-21A1, natural area; 270-21C1, lot coverage; 270-24, building setback lines; 270-42, structures in required yard areas. The applicant is here, Benjamin Gray. He is the general manager of the Belmore Inn and Spa, located at 6 Christian Street here in lovely Rehoboth Beach. The nature of the request: the applicant, Benjamin Gray, general manager of the Belmore Inn and Spa, located at 6 Christian Street, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware 19971, is seeking variances to the aforementioned codes to allow an increase in size to an existing pool patio area. The applicant has stated in the application that the increase is approximately 588 square feet of concrete to an existing pool patio area to allow meeting growing accessibility access needs. The property is located at 6 Christian Street and consists of various zoning designations to include C1 Central Commercial District, C3 Secondary Commercial District, and R1 Residential District. Interestingly, this property is listed as one parcel in Sussex County records, while the city of Rehoboth has the area recorded as separate parcels. The lots are combined by previously approved construction to form an irregular shaped lot with frontages on Christian Street, 2nd Street, and Philadelphian Street, consisting of approximately 1.22 acres. The proposed construction of the pool deck is located within the R1 residential district. The current use is a pool and pool patio associated with the Belmore Inn and Spa. That particular patio is not included in the recent application for permanent compliance. The proposed addition would increase the coverage by 588 square feet, as stated by the applicant. Measures performed by the building inspector confirm the square footage. Upon expansion of the pool patio, the proposed addition would violate the zoning code in the following manners. 270-21A1 natural area and 270-21C1 lot coverage. In R1S, R1, and R2 districts, a minimum of 50% of the gross lot area and 50% of the front yard setback area of every building lot shall remain as a natural area as defined in 274 definitions. And I've included that, that definition there for your reading purposes. The existing coverage is currently over the allowable amount that would be allowed in an R1 zone. If the lot coverage is over by structural and accessory coverage totals, natural area requirements are automatically violated. It is important to recognize that if these parcels tied back to Sussex County zoning and the city of Rehoboth Beach recognized such, the owners of the property could cover 100% of the lot with exception to required natural areas when abutting residential zone districts. 27024, building setback lines. Each story or part of a building shall be set back from the street line so as not to project beyond the building setback line prescribed in the following table. And I just did a little excerpt there for you rather than include the whole table. Being that it is an R1 designation, it's the only one that applies. They have a minimum of 15 feet front setback requirement. With the footnote there, an open front porch of any size that meets the requirements of 270-21B1 may encroach up to 5 feet into the front yard setback area. The addition to the pool deck would project into the front setback requirement of 15 feet and violates this provision as as this construction does not meet the definition of a front porch. 27042, structures in required yard areas. No structure and no part of a structure shall be erected within or shall project into the required yard area except cornices, eaves, gutters, chimneys, steps or entries projecting from the main structure no more than 24 inches. Fences and screens subject to the provisions of 27043. I've included the definition of a structure taken from the code. As the addition to the pool deck meets the definition of structure, the proposed construction would violate the provisions of that code section. In conclusion, with this application, it is important to keep in mind the differences of zoning and use. While the zoning of this application is R1, the use is that of a hotel, which is consistent with the use carried on for many years. The use is existing non-conforming, is to be continued as currently used, and the space is to accommodate growing accessibility needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gray, who's going to present for your group?
So it'll be me.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Benjamin Gray. I'm the general manager of the Belmore Inn and Spa. Been here in Rehoboth Beach. Yes, sir.
And Mr. Gray, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir. I do. Also here with me is my engineer. I'm not sure if he needs to be sworn in as well, sir. His name is Wayne Walker. He's been with me for the past 7 years and can comment on the project as well. Does he need to be sworn in?
So we'll swear him in when he testifies.
Sounds good. So as I was stating before, my name is Ben Gray, general manager of the Belmore. Been there for about 6 years, since 2016. Known the Moore family, who were staples of this community for the past several decades as well, and been with them since EOS Hospitality bought the property in 2020. What I've learned in the past 6 years is that we have a growing use and growing need for accessibility issues in our outside garden courtyard. That's been told to me by several guests over the course of the past 6 years that I've been there, and we most recently made several improvements to our garden courtyard to enhance that accessibility, up to and including making that level with our existing step that steps off of our sunroom. Right now, there is zero transition from that area, which means that guests can now more access that garden courtyard on a regular basis. So for the first time, over this past weekend, I noticed several guests that were out there on walkers and using wheelchairs and actually able to, for the first time in 20 years since the property has been there, access that area and all areas of it without the need for additional assistance and without the need for additional accessibility. As a part of that project, one of our guests came to us and said, "This is great that you are expanding the garden courtyard and making it more ADA compliant. Now what are you going to do about the pool that is outside in the garden courtyard? Because for the past 20 years that the Belmore has been here, I love coming to the hotel, but I have never been able to access this pool. My wheelchair doesn't fit due to the existing area that's over there." So what we've done is that we have engaged these plans and engaged a contractor to come out and see what the likelihood would be of us increasing that surface area of that pool and expanding that concrete an additional 588 feet to allow for additional wheelchair access to accommodate those guests, keeping in line with what our current improvements have been for the garden courtyard, allowing our guests to not only enjoy that area of the hotel, but also the area of the pool deck so that they can go out and they can sun. And that was the primary reason for this application. Throughout this process, I was surprised to learn, as Mr. Janus just mentioned, how we have been zoned over the course of the past several years, and that it is a combination of commercial and residential, hence the reason why we're here. So that's the reason why we submitted the variance request, to allow for that additional wheelchair accessibility and to enhance the area of the garden courtyard, because it's something that our guests have been asking for years, and we finally have the capital to be able to invest into that.
Want Mr. Walker to speak at this point?
Anything to add to that? Okay.
No, I really don't have anything to add to that.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. I have some questions for the building inspector. I see somebody raise their hand in the audience. You'll have a chance to speak. So, Mr. Janus, let me ask you a couple of questions here. My understanding is that this Belmore property sits on 3 different zones, C3, C1, and R1. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Am I correct that the work that's anticipated here, this concrete or the hardscape that they want to increase by 588 square feet, that falls in the R1, one of the R1 properties? Is that also correct?
That is correct, Chair.
The particular parcel where they anticipate putting this concrete slab is triangular in shape, true?
It is.
Could you tell me what the dimensions are of that triangular piece of property?
You allow me to check my notes here.
You're having trouble finding it. You have any idea what the dimensions are of this triangular?
Not offhand.
I've got it here, Chair. It's roughly well, it would probably be half of that, so I'm estimating it 115 feet by maybe 70 feet of the triangular shape.
I think that maybe there's a misunderstanding on that thing. I looked at the diagram for the property, and I see the legend there, the bottom right, that's supposed to be 60 feet long. Is that correct?
That is.
Okay, so you see, just to the left of that legend, you see the triangle there?
I do. So I would estimate that sorry, sir. Sorry, Chair, if you give me 1 second here, please. It very well could be, but assuming that that drawing is at scale, I would put that at roughly 80 feet.
Okay, and the shortest end of the triangle, the shortest side, how long would you say that is?
You're referring to the lot line that would divide the 2 R1 properties?
The lot line,
That divides these 2 parcels.
yes, yes.
Yes. I would put that at approximately 40 feet, according to the scale shown on the drawing.
So based upon those measurements, would this be considered a buildable lot?
I would believe it would be a buildable lot. I believe it would be a buildable lot. Would take a good designer, but I believe it to be buildable.
That's less than 5,000 square feet.
It's an existing lot, so it would be an existing non-conforming lot.
All right. If this parcel were in a C1 zone or a C3 zone, would the same 50% natural area requirement apply?
Depending on the use, it would not.
How about this particular use?
This uses a residential lot, so it does fall under those requirements.
But if it was a commercial zone, it wouldn't.
If it was commercially zoned, it would be allowed to cover the property entirely.
Right. And would you agree that the property is currently being used in a as a commercial use?
I would, yes, Chair.
What's the question?
The question is, if it's being used as a commercial list, and how did they get,
Could we speak into the microphone?
then how did they get a building permit as a residential use when they were building a house that faces, I think it's Philadelphia Street?
That is a different lot, I believe.
Well, it's still the same one, it's an R1.
But it's a different lot. It's still an R1, but that is not the same lot that this pool
But
deck
no,
is
I
proposed on.
understand that's not the same lot, but what you were saying is, if it's commercial, if it's been used as commercial and treated as commercial, well, so has that lot been treated as commercial? Because it's rental property they put up there as part, an extension of the hotel, I'm presuming. So they've been used to using, I mean, they're used to dealing with the two different zones, and the city gave them a building permit as a resident at resident cost, not at commercial cost. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
So it's like you want it both ways.
Okay, you finished with that
Yeah.
line of questioning? All right. My understanding is that the proposed hardscaping or concrete will be directly adjacent to and add to the size of an existing poolside patio, is that correct?
That's correct.
At the top of page 2 of your report, you mentioned that, quote, "The patio is not included in the recent application for permit of compliance." Are you referring to the permit that's required for restaurants and bars that have outdoor seating areas?
I am, yes.
Have they submitted a application for permit compliance?
They have not, and I don't believe they would be able to do so, as the current patio that they have called out in their permit of compliance is 750. So it would be the max that they could have.
All right. So what relevance is that to this particular issue?
I just wanted to include in there that they're not intending to serve alcoholic beverages on that, in that area.
Got it. So if this is granted, this is not going to be a part of the outdoor bar that they have?
Correct.
Is this lot currently being used as the poolside area for the hotel?
It is.
I don't have any other questions for you at this time, Mr. Janis. I do have some questions for the applicant. The proposed hardscaping addition is on the south side of the pool, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so at this point, I'm going to ask for you to be sworn. So could you repeat your name for me again, please?
Wayne Walker.
And an address, please?
It is 10 Bryn Mawr, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware.
Mr. Walker, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed.
Mr. Walker, could you please describe the current condition of the 588 square feet which you seek to extend as a poolside patio?
Yes, right now it's just grass, dirt, and when we put our chairs around the pool, there's no way to walk. It's like just enough room to walk around the pool. And to get handicapped people or anybody in there that's handicap accessible, we need to make room, because right now they've been putting it in the grass, and it's very uneven for them, for people with walkers and such, to get into the grass to get that taken care of.
How wide is the concrete area from the pool edge into the grass? would you say?
I would have to say about 5.5 to 6 foot. And the question that we were talking about, the size of that, I think it's like 6 foot of grass by at least 40 foot. And there's like, it kind of jogs in, and then it's just a weird angle.
At an angle.
Yeah, to get around the swimming pool is how it was. We're just trying to make everything flow a little bit better for, to make use of that pool for handicap too.
Is it your contention that there's any safety benefit here to the improvements that you're seeking to
Yes,
make?
very much so.
In what way?
Keep everybody away from the pool instead of trying to push them closer to the pool as they're trying to get around to get to chairs.
I'll give you an example on that, Chairman, if I can. A couple years ago, we actually had a guest that fell into the pool while they were trying to get around the existing chairs that were there because of that limited access and the limited egress there. While they were walking around the chairs, they actually slipped and they fell back into the pool. To speak to the safety concerns that you have, this would help eliminate that.
Will this proposal improve handicapped access to the pool from Philadelphia Street?
We do have accesses from the Philadelphia Street for two different angles, but the pool is in behind fencing, and it's kept locked after hours.
Could you repeat that, please?
The pool fencing, well, we have 2 gates coming in off of Philadelphia Streets, but the pool is also locked
In a separate fence
in a
area.
separate fence area. Yes.
So you have to go through a fence from Philadelphia into the garden courtyard and then into another fence to get into the pool area.
The funny thing about this is I live not too far away, and I probably walk by that corner 5 times a week. And
We
I
shoulda
wouldn't
came
have
in.
I wouldn't have known that a pool was there. I don't think I've ever laid eyes on the pool,
Been there since the dinner bell in.
and I certainly had no idea that there were another set of fences inside there. Okay. And is it your position that this, and your intention that this patio, if we grant the variance, is not to be used as a part of the outdoor bar?
That is correct.
That is definitely correct.
All right, I don't have any other questions for either the city or the applicant. Anybody else have any questions? Randy?
I guess this is maybe for Mr. Janis. Is there some reason that this has never been, the zoning has never been changed? And what would be involved in an application for a zoning change to making this commercial, so rather than coming to us for a variance and keeping it residential?
I can't speak to why this is zoned the way it is. It just kind of sat here lingering for many, many years. And as a matter of fact, this particular lot was one of the problems with the development of the recent CDP, because it does not tie back to the way Sussex County has it tied up into their system. It does have potential to go through with the zoning changes. Of course, that would be up to the Planning Commission, of course. And I think for a better not necessarily a better conclusion, but more an expedient conclusion to this, to get them for their needs to be met immediately, would be obviously what they're doing now for this.
Okay, Walt, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question for either Mr. Gray or Mr. Walker. What you're proposing here, does it go right up to the property line, or is there some green space between the proposed patio and the?
There's definitely green space and trees on the outside of the fence, and we're not coming up to the fence on the inside. We're trying to stay a foot away from that.
And how far would you say you're from the property line we're proposing, roughly?
I'd have to say at least 6 foot.
Thank you.
I just have a kind of a compliance question, and that is, they're going to be able to serve alcohol on part of the patio, but not the rest of the patio if this is granted. Is that correct?
So the patio that's associated with the permanent compliance is directly outside of the door in the L-shaped area, if you're looking at the site plan, coming immediately from the building around the stairway area. It is nowhere near the pool. It's separated by 20, 30, maybe 40 feet.
Okay.
And that area does have to be sectioned off and barricaded with barriers as part of the permanent compliance and Delaware liquor rules.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Oh, I just, a comment, on the planning commission, we always required pictures. And that would be really nice to have photographs of these things rather than just blueprints.
I agree.
And I just wondered if that the planning commission requires photographs for instance, if you want to partition a lot or, all the neighbors and the surrounding neighbors. And I'm used to getting that with a request like this. And it would be really nice to have it because sometimes, we're not supposed to go over and, survey the property ourselves, but it would be really nice to have a picture. A picture is worth 1,000 words. And it would be very helpful if, I don't know if that's something that that we can do as a Board of Adjustment.
Well, it's a matter of, the applicant is allowed to present his case however he wants to present his case, but, I probably would have taken pictures and brought pictures along or submitted them earlier. But that we don't have the pictures in this case, we do have the plot plan. We'll make the decision based on the evidence we have in front of us.
So, and then the other thing I'd just like to ask a question about is, right now in the city, we're dealing with stormwater issues. And so 583 square feet of concrete is going to generate lots of stormwater runoff. And I could never support that. I could support perhaps a pervious surface. And, you've made a big deal also about talking about how it's for the handicap, for people in wheelchairs and walkers. But are you going to, use that area and mark it off as, only for the handicapped, or can anybody use it?
So anybody will be able to use that area. Essentially what it will do is expand the seating that we have there so that we can move the chairs away from the pool and thereby allow the wheelchair accessibility and the egress in between.
Is there wheelchair accessibility into the pool?
It will be.
Yes, that's a part of the plan.
It's there now, but we want to try to make it a better transition.
Okay.
And as far as water runoff goes, we did put all kinds of draining system to try to catch all that water, so it's not going anywhere else but into the storm source.
That's at the point, though. It's all going into the storm sewers, which are then going into Silver Lake from your side of town, going into Silver Lake. And,
Yeah,
and
they
various
were
other
already
places.
in place. We just brought them up to date.
Any other questions? All right, I know some folks in the audience wanted to make a statement. So you're up. Come on up to the microphone here, please. I'm Jerry Capone. I'm the chair of the board, and would you folks mind introducing yourselves?
Mary Ann Fry, Howard Fry. We are at 205 Munson Street,
Okay.
and our biggest issue.
Okay,
on a
sir,
second,
sir,
you're gonna
one
be-
second. So, Mr. Fry, you're going to speak, right?
I'm going to speak, I think,
Okay,
because I'll probably forget something.
Well, you are both encouraged to speak, but we're going to encourage you to speak one at a time,
Okay,
okay? So,
I'll let the ladies go first then.
all right, fair enough. Mrs. Fry, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
I was happy to hear the storm sewer issue raised, because that is our biggest concern. We live directly across from the Belmore. We've been homeowners for 20 years, and we have seen the results of and I'll admit, a poor infrastructure in Rehoboth. But you can imagine when we came down one summer and the Belmore had paved over their parking, their whole parking lot. And where did that water go? It came down across Philadelphia and ended up in our backyard, which gets 18 inches of rain water this high. And this, we have been, speaking to the city for, at least 15 years about this. We went from, getting this much water to 18 inches in our backyard. And the work that was done on the Philadelphia sewer system and whatever infrastructure they've put in at the Belmore, we have not seen the benefit of that. And I have pictures from July 1st of '21 which show, again, when we get, it's not every rainstorm, thank God, it's only about 3 or 4 a year, but when you get 18 inches in your backyard, it does cause property damage to the, to our shed, to anything in the yard. You can't have a garden because whatever comes into your yard, who knows what chemicals and all it carries. So it certainly affects our way of life. So to say that there's 600 more square feet of water, rainwater that's going to be carried, it certainly makes us very unhappy. And I wonder if how many other residents that apply for pool permits are going to say, well, if they get X, number of feet paved out, why can't we have that in our residential lot? So it becomes a cascading problem for the city. And so I know that, they're hanging their hat on ADA compliance and, this, and I'm sympathetic to that, but I just wonder, do they have lifts that put people in the, if they're that concerned, do they have a lift that allows people to get into the pool? Is that part of the plan in making it a more pleasurable experience for customers?
We'll give the applicant a chance to
So,
answer that question.
And again, I just, that's our concern.
Mr. Fry, do you want to add anything?
Did
I
you?
would like to.
Yeah, Mrs. Fry, don't go anywhere.
No,
Mr. Fry,
need
do
to
you,
be- go
do you
ahead.
solemnly swear that the testimony given in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. As my wife has said, for 20-some years now, we've been complaining about this. You've probably got a photo album somewhere in this building that I've brought with all this water in our yard. I've lost 2 lawnmowers because my shed fills up. I asked if I could raise the shed up. Sure, you can raise the shed up. You got to get a permit. You got to do this. I mean, it's sort of been nonsensical as far as I'm concerned. It's not only my yard, it's the neighbor on the other side, which is 203, I think, Mr. Burton. Yeah, Charles Burton. There was something else I wanted to say. Oh, part of what we've been talked about for 20 years is the storm sewer system being insufficient, which I think it is. We have been told, and I don't know that this is factual, that there's a storm sewer drain right at my driveway in front of my house, which as soon as we get a heavy rain, it backs up because it ends there, goes across Munson Street, and then out, rather than going down to Bayard, which again seems kind of crazy since the one across the street's uphill for me. And I know water does run downhill, so they tell me. That's a big concern. I can't even come through my front door or go out my front door when we get these heavy rains because I got to have waiters. Go ahead.
No, so your backyard is closest to the hotel, right?
Correct, right. So it's the
So-
backyard that fills up.
Right.
But then the front yard, the storm sewer backs up, so I'm getting it from both
Hit it
sides.
from both ends. I remember a few years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, on Philadelphia Street, looked like the city or some agency increased the size of the height of the curbs there. Am I right about that?
You are. Didn't do anything.
Excuse me?
It was of no effect.
Was it for the purpose of trying to solve the problem?
I
or-
think it was, yes, because our neighbor directly behind us
Yeah, that's
had complained about it. They came in, they pulled up a tree that had lifted up the street so that the water was blocked from running down to Bayard. And of course, then it came down his driveway into my backyard. The other issue is, and I don't know how true this is, but we have been told when that parking lot was paved that there was no dealings with storm sewer runoff. I don't know how true that is, but it certainly seemed to increase once that parking lot was paved over.
When was that paved, as far as you can?
Oh, Lord, just a long time ago.
Probably 12 years ago.
So I don't know, it's just, I'm glad you brought up storm sewer, because that's our major
That's what
concern.
you came here to
I'm
talk
all in
about today,
favor
is
of
it?
doing everything that can be done for disabled Americans. I might be there someday myself on a wheelchair or a walker, and I would love for everything to be simple. But by the same token, we have to pay attention to what effect it may have. I think I'm done.
Can I get your address again, please?
205 Munson.
Thank you.
Mrs. Fry, anything else?
No, that
Okay.
kind of sums it up.
Well, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience that would like to address this issue today? No? All right. Thank you. So we've concluded the testimony portion of the hearing today. Now, we did get some correspondence from Mr. Sam Cooper, and I reviewed that. I presume that the rest of us did as well. And I'd like to tell you what my thoughts are about that. On Friday afternoon, we received approximately 40 pages of documents from Mr. Cooper regarding this property. The documents, for the most part, were Board of Adjustment records of 3 variance hearings held on July 1997, in December 1997, and April 2000. Those hearings addressed parking, for the most part, addressed parking requirements for this hotel, which at the time was owned by a previous owner. This hotel property apparently changed hands in 2020. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Cooper made a written inquiry to the building inspector in April 2020, in which he inquired whether the new owners of the hotel were in compliance with the terms of the parking space variance, which was granted in 2020, 20 years earlier. Mr. Cooper's correspondence indicates that he never got a response from the building inspector to his letter, which was sent 2 years ago. Mr. Cooper urges us in his correspondence recently not to consider this case until we know whether the applicant is complying with the variance decisions issued 20 years ago. So I appreciate the fact that Mr. Cooper made us aware of this issue, and I appreciate that we had the opportunity to review that, but it was kind of short notice. This is my feeling about the weight of the correspondence that we got 3 days ago. The issue that Mr. Cooper raised concerns parking. The case today does not. So I think that's a critical distinction. As far as the work of the Board of Adjustment, the Board of Adjustment oversight of the building inspector is limited by city code to, quote, hear and decide appeals where it is alleged that there is an error in any order, requirement, decision, or determination made by the building inspector in the enforcement of this chapter. On this record, there is no building inspector decision, which we are now aware of, which can be appealed. To the extent that anyone, Mr. Cooper included, may feel dissatisfied with the lack of a response from the building inspector 2 years ago, the fact of the matter is that inquiry was made 2 years ago, and any attempts to get a decision from the building inspector or a position from the building inspector could have been made to the city administration during those 2 years. But in any event, we didn't become aware of it until three days ago. But even if Mr. Cooper had made his concerns known to us in a timely manner, the Board of Adjustment oversight of the building inspector's decisions does not begin until an appeal has been filed by an aggrieved party. Our rules give an aggrieved party 30 days to file an appeal. There has been no appeal regarding the building inspector's action or inaction regarding parking issues on this property. So while I guess I can appreciate Mr. Cooper's frustration of bringing this to the attention of the building inspector 2 years ago, I don't think that by bringing it to our attention 3 days before the hearing is an adequate basis for us to defer hearing this case. You came before us today. I think we're going to be prepared to make a decision today. So that's the position I have on the correspondence. Does any member of the board want to take a different position? No? Okay. All right, so here we are. We've heard all the evidence, and now it's time to make a decision. Does someone have a motion they'd like to propose?
Actually, can we ask a few more questions at this point?
Of course you can.
2 different questions. One for you is, will this be visible at all from the street and people passing by? Or is it behind these two fences?
It'll be behind the fence, so much like Mr. Chairman's example of him walking by, 20 times a day and not knowing that there was a pool there, it will very much have the same effect.
Okay. And then the other question that I had was about the flooding of the yard. You all live on Munson Street, so that there is another house behind you that faces the hotel. And it's your belief that water comes from Philadelphia Street through that yard and then into your yard?
Come on up to the microphone, please.
The neighbor behind us actually had to tear down his existing unit, not his main house, but his, whatever you want to call it, his little rental unit, because it rotted away from the water that got absorbed over the years. So he replaced it, but he went through the permitting process of elevating the thing like 2 feet, so that it wouldn't rot away again.
And what about his front yard?
Well, his front yard, runs down the hill. It doesn't get it. It comes over, goes down his driveway. So the front yard's not affected because the driveway is lower than the curb. We talked about the curb being raised up. You follow me?
All right, I see.
Patty, anything else? Walt, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
No.
All right, now, anybody have a motion? Somebody. We're not leaving today until somebody makes a motion. So,
Actually, one more question, if I may.
feel free, I'm all for more questions.
Is there an impervious material that can be used that is solid enough for your use? Something that would, I mean, obviously gravel doesn't, but I know that they're making all sorts of new kinds of concrete and things that will let water pass through. Is something like that an option?
I didn't research anything other than, putting concrete in its place.
Mr. Janis, are you aware of different things like that?
So there are definitely different construction methods that you can employ to get this expansion. However, our code does not recognize impervious versus pervious coverage.
Right, I realize that from the code, but I'm thinking just from practical.
Well, there's definitely pervious concrete. There's pervious pavers. There's new technology out there now that can be utilized.
You were thinking about asking a question, Janet?
No, it's all right. I was going to point out to Randy that it's pervious material, and you can get pervious anywhere. I mean, the pervious material is about the same price as impervious material. The difference is with pervious, you have to go down about 12 inches, and there's what, 4 layers, 5 layers that you have to put in mat to, so that the water goes through.
Okay,
So it's more expensive.
So it's more expensive, but let's tease this out a little bit. So what the building inspector is telling us is that this pervious material, which we're discussing now, is not permitted by our building code.
No, it is permitted, but it is permitted.
Yeah,
But the building
let's-
code doesn't distinguish.
Right, it is permitted, but there's no distinction in our code.
So the lot coverage requirements would
the
still be
lot co-
violated regardless of whether the surface is pervious or impervious.
Correct.
All right. So the application that's being made today is for pervious or impervious, or can you tell?
It is for impervious coverage.
For impervious concrete. Now, it seems to me that it would be possible for a motion to be made to grant the variance in part, only if the variance were to require pervious material. Does anybody disagree with that?
No.
Okay. So if somebody were to make a motion that the variance is granted only if for the use of pervious material, that would be something that might work to allay the concerns of the neighbors then.
I guess it's not going to fix their problem that already exists.
But it's not gonna make it
probably won't
worse.
make it worse.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't even go into comment about the city code and you know,
Okay.
what it allows, but.
So, but we may be working in the right direction here. Let's just see what the applicant's got to say. You see where this is going?
Yes, sir, I
Okay,
do.
so are we going to get there or not?
Yes, sir, I think
right.
we will, yeah.
All right, so,
I just had a question.
go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, for Mr. Walker, you said there's existing drainage system?
Yes, there's drainage throughout all of our property, but we just brought everything up to code. And then on Philadelphia Street, we had to put another piece in there, so it wouldn't go out into Philadelphia Street. That was an extra addition that
Contained within the property?
that is correct.
So what about your parking lot then? Have you upgraded the drainage on the parking lot?
No, I only been there since 2013. The parking lot's always been there. And,
And flooded out the neighborhood?
well, not really. I mean, not that I ever seen, but I found out today that it does.
The neighbors are pretty sure that the water's
Yeah.
coming from off that parking lot. All right, so here we are, and what have we learned today? We've learned that the people in the neighborhood have a problem with water runoff from this property. At least that's been some of the testimony. And we've learned that there's a material which would allow water to drain into the ground, and it's called pervious concrete, I guess, or some. All right. Does anybody want to make a motion to allow to grant the variance on the condition that pervious concrete is used? Does anybody want to make a motion denying the variance?
I'll make a motion to grant the variance if a pervious material can be used and that care is taken for the existing drains or additional drains would stop any water from leaving that area of the lot, getting off of your property.
Mr. Janis, can you help us to any extent in identifying or for our description of pervious material? Is there a product that,
Believe it or not, there's pervious concrete, there are pervious pavers, there's different construction techniques that can be employed through various different products, and you'd really have to check the product specifications to see, you know, what extent, how impervious or pervious these different applications are. But there's several products out there, and I would just urge the applicant to investigate those and then apply them and construct them to the manufacturer's specifications.
So, Mr. Janis, your office will receive, if this motion is granted, and it's conditional approval, and the motion will involve 3 different variances, I believe. I think we can state it as one, but if a permit application will have to go to your office, is that right?
That's correct.
And you'll have the capability and the expertise to evaluate whether the proposed building material meets the understanding of what's pervious versus impervious, is that right?
That's correct.
We can submit that with our application for your approval, correct?
That's right, and as with typical with all these sorts of applications, the specifications are typically, you know, they accompany the various different applications as they come in.
and let's just play this out. So if the motions are granted, you guys go in to apply for a building permit. He says, you know what, this isn't the quality of pervious material the board was thinking about. I'm not granting the building permit. You're back at square one, or you could appeal back to us his decision to see whether or not we agree with him or not. But if this motion is carried, he's going to decide whether that pervious material is of the kind we require, okay? You understand that?
Yep. Understood.
All right, let's work on the language of the motion a little bit. You want to help us out?
So, well, you have a motion to grant the variance. The variance, we don't have a second yet, and you'll ask for one when you're ready, but the variance is I take it, to grant the necessary relief to allow for allow for decking to be installed at the size requested, 588 square feet, I think, in the location represented, such as it would be necessary to, to allow relief from the lot coverage requirements of 270-24, the natural area requirements of 270-21C1, and the building setback lines. The side yard setback that would be applicable needs to be relieved, and that section number is 270-24. So I think that, is that not what was intended by your motion?
Exactly, that was my intent.
Okay. Does everyone understand the motion?
Yes.
Yes. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a second. So I'm going to ask for votes, and please explain the reason for your votes.
Could I ask Matt a question?
Sure.
By having this much, that's quite a lot of pavement that they're putting in. By having this much pavement, even if it's pervious, will that prevent stormwater runoff? If it's raining, and God knows we've had some rains this year, will it just go straight down into the ground through that? Is that your impression of pervious pavers?
I can only speak to the area that's being presented. It would definitely aid and not add to. But I believe probably the site has other issues going on that would need to be addressed to look into that occurrence.
Like what other issues?
No, I don't have specific information on hand, but you definitely need to take a look at the site when it's maybe not under application to see exactly what's going on there and perhaps promote some additional ideas. But I don't believe that's part of this application today.
Okay.
You want to vote?
No, I'd rather wait. I'm not too inclined to vote for this, frankly, so I have to think this through a little bit.
Then I'll let you wait.
Thank you.
All right?
Thank you.
We'll go down, we'll start with you, Randy.
I vote in favor of granting the variance. I think in the interest of safety and for, improving the use for the customers in a safe manner around the pool, that sounds like it's something that's necessary. When I look at how close that little jog comes in, it looks awfully close to the pool. So I can certainly see that would be an issue. And, I do think we need to take into account the concerns of lot coverage because of the, of a impervious lot coverage because of the zoning here. It's interesting to me that it's, has never been rezoned, but I think we can get around that with, by granting this and having a compromise so that it's not going to increase, any water runoff. So I'm voting in favor of it.
Well,
Mr. Chairman, I'm voting in favor of it. I don't see where granting the variance will change the nature of the zone. The whole area of the use of the area is commercial in nature. I don't see by granting this variance would impact the character of the district. I don't see where allowing this variance would have an effect on neighboring properties or uses. You didn't, especially given that it's reusing the previous materials and it's tied into some storm system or will be tied into the existing storm system. And I think the failure to remove the restriction will create an exceptional practical difficulty for the owner and more so the disabled community and the safety and welfare of their guests.
okay, I'll vote the third, and I'm going to vote in favor of the variance request as well. This is, although it's a residential zone, there's no question that it's a commercial in use, and it's adjacent to other commercial parts of the parcel there. And I'm sensitive to the concerns of the neighbors, and it's for that reason that we modified the request that the applicant was making. So the requirement now is that this, we mitigate any problems with the runoff that will be caused by putting a hardscape in this area. So we're requiring you to have pervious material here now. And we hope that that solves or at least minimizes the problem to a significant extent. But that's what we've decided. That's why I'm voting in favor of this variance. And I think there are safety concerns in terms of the guests. I mean, I heard the applicant tell us about somebody falling in the pool. And I can appreciate that that's a dangerous situation when you have clutter around a pool, and it makes it difficult for people to get around if there's not a clear walkway. So for those reasons, I'm voting in favor of this.
I'm really torn about what to do because I'm a big proponent of pervious surfaces in the city. And I'm glad that you all agree with that. But it just seems that this property is a mishmash. And I've been around this city a long time, and I get very cynical about people who say, well, you know, we're not going to serve liquor there. It's only for the handicapped. It's only this. You know, I don't know how old was a person in a wheelchair fell in the pool or just some kid walking around it, you know. I don't know.
That was a grown-up. It's for adult only.
So I'm going to vote against it.
The variance request carries by a vote of 3-1.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so what's left on our agenda? Any other business, Madam Clerk? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Could I just add bring up the thing about pictures one more time?
Yeah.
Instead of being it up to them to bring pictures, the Planning Commission made it part of the package that you had to show pictures of what you were doing. And since I've been on the Planning Commission, I can think of, you know, those back stairs over on, was it Laurel or Hickman or something in that first block? It would have been nice to have pictures of some of these things so that you have a vision. I'm not very good at blueprints. It just looks like a bunch of flat stuff on a piece of paper to me. In addition, my vision is getting worse and worse, and I can't see them anyway.
Are you
So-
suggesting that we need a rule change to require?
Yeah, I'm going to suggest a rule change that when an applicant is coming before us and they want to change the way, you know, the pool looks or something, that they bring us pictures of what it looks like now and maybe the neighboring properties and any impact.
So
So
I'm
that's
gonna-
what
I'm
I'm
gonna-
suggesting, a rule change.
I'm going to ask the clerk to put that on the next agenda, a rule change, and if you could take a look at the code and
I will.
make suggestions as far as change, we'll consider it at our next meeting.
I will, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So the wording of that will require some attention. I mean, for instance, Jim, you just said that you'd like also pictures of the surrounding areas that might be affected. So the question is going to be, when has the applicant met?
Well,
that?
I'll look at the
So it's
Planning
just something
Commission
to,
thing, Fred,
it's
and
something,
see
it's
what it
something for us
says,
to think
yeah.
about
Yeah.
as we
Should I talk to
prepare
Fred
for the next
and
meeting.
Put some thoughts together and then talk to Fred about it? Okay. I don't know what you guys think, Randy and Walt, if you think pictures would be nice.
It would certainly be
No,
helpful,
I
yeah.
agree, because I looked at an aerial
And,
before.
and
to
and
kind
there have
of
been
get an
other
idea.
times when I
So
thought it'd
agree.
be nice to have seen exactly what we're talking about. I agree.
Very good suggestion.
All right, now can we adjourn?
I'll make a motion. No,
I'll second it.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.